What's up YouTube? Today we're gonna take a look at a new and unique card game where you can design and create your own cards and play them in your decks later on. Welcome to Ariokan, an upcoming free-to-play card game that is currently still in closed beta, but looks very promising due to its unique card builder mechanic. And we're gonna check that out in a second, but before you understand how to build cards, we first need to understand how to actually play the game. So let me lay out the most important parts of the gameplay for you. The core gameplay of Ariokan is very reminiscent of many of the other major CCGs out there. Each player has to include a god card in their deck that starts with 20 HP, and the goal of the game is to reduce those hit points to 0. Each god card is also tied to a faction or a region in the game. You may include as many cards as you want from each region in your deck, but there are powerful synergies with your god card if you include cards from their faction. Each deck can also include up to 3 hunter cards. These are powerful units with special effects and a lot of keywords that can easily swing the tides of the battle into your favor. The unique thing about them is these cannot be drawn and these cannot be summoned with mana. Instead, each of them has a special summoning condition that you need to fulfill, and the card is immediately gonna show up on your side of the battlefield. And the rest of your deck consists of minions and spells that you can regularly play with mana. The gameplay itself is a back and forth action system, kind of like in Magic the Gathering or Legends of Runeterra. Each player has the chance to answer to each of the opponent's moves, and that makes it very strategic and interactive. The combat system is also a bit unique because the attacker can choose the defender. So the attacker can duel a certain unit on the opponent's side of the battlefield, and if there are no units left, then you can directly attack their god. And of course, the actual combat can be influenced by spells. There are removal spells, there are buff spells, there are sacrifice draw spells, all kinds of stuff. But we'll see more actual gameplay later on in the video. I will show a full game of Ariokan later on, but first I want to explain how to unlock new cards and how to create new cards. You can unlock all of the cards by just doing quests, weekly quests and daily quests, which will give you shards, scrolls, as well as wild cards. Let's take a quick look at how to use each of them. If we go to the collection and look at cards that we don't have yet, how do we unlock them? Let's take a god card for example. I do have a god wild card. I can just create one which I want, or I can save up some more shards to unlock it eventually. There's also the option to buy in-game coins to unlock cards directly and faster, but it is absolutely not necessary. At least right now at this stage in closed beta, the economy is pretty generous and you will be able to unlock or create all of the cards that you want. Then how does this game monetize? It's mostly through cosmetics like card packs as well as emotes, which are both great features to have, especially the emotes coming from Legends of Runeterra myself. I loved that social part, the possibility to interact with your opponents or friends. And this prevents Ariokan from becoming a pay-to-win kind of card game. And just to show you guys the progression system, let's take a quick look at how the quests can look. You have some daily quests giving you some juicy rewards as well as some weekly quests. This is all very reminiscent of Legends of Runeterra, which for me is a pretty big plus. I love the progression system there, and it feels like Ariokan was inspired by many of the other major CCGs, and it kind of tried to pick the best parts of each game and merge all of those into something new. But with all of that being said, let's take a look at the thing that makes Ariokan unique, the card builder. This is gonna look a little bit messy at first because there are so many options. You can change pretty much any parameter of the card. You can design it however you want. And I already designed a couple of cards here. You will see them later on in the gameplay examples. But for now, I just want to show you how this is done. We can just create a spell together real quick. You get an empty template and you can choose all of the effects as well as the numbers. Now beware, the more powerful the card is, the more the mana cost increases. The same goes for minions. You can pick your own stats, but the higher the stats, the higher the mana cost as well. The developers claim this is all very meticulously calculated and everything should be balanced by mana cost. I'm curious myself how this is going to play out into the future, if everything is going to stay balanced or if there can be some broken combos of this card builder, but for now it's just a very fun and very creative thing to do. So let's create a card here. I think one of the things that my deck is missing is some proper late game board removal. So I'm looking for the removal effects here, and I want something in the very late game that just swings the tides of battle entirely in my favor. So let's go through these options. As you can see here, we can destroy enemy units. We can choose how many we want to destroy. and the energy cost, the mana cost goes way up. But like I said, I want a proper late game finisher. Let's go with destroying all enemy units, and we got it right here. Now this card is proper expensive at 112 mana and hard to play at any point in the game. So what we can do to reduce the mana cost is to have some other drawback instead. And that's in this segment right here, sacrifice and penalties. In the deck that I will play, we have access to a lot of card draws, so I think in the later stages of the game I would be totally fine to discard 3 cards from my hand. And here we see again, the mana cost does get reduced significantly. I do want the card to be as cheap and flexible as possible, so I will go with discarding 3 cards. And the other thing is I can make this unstoppable, so it cannot get countered by deny or counterspell type of spells. I do want to do that for extra safety. And now that we have the effect of the card, we can go for all of the flavor. I'm gonna make this card from the unaligned region, and we want to go for some dramatic names, so let's go with the Lobster Wrath. Can add a bit of lore and context to the card. Let's just go with, I don't know. Justice shall strike upon thee. Why not? Now what is also amazing about this, especially for you artsy people out there, is that we can choose our own art. I had some AI generated things here and boom, here we go. I'm not a very artsy person myself, but if you want to not only game design your own cards but also creatively design the art and so on, you can do that and upload your own art. And once we're finished with the card, we can use up one of our scrolls to create it, and it does get added to the game's library and everyone can access this card. And now that the card is created, let's add it to our favorite deck real quick. Gotta make some space first. Let's get rid of another removal spell. Let's look for the Lobster Wrath right here and let's add it as a one-off. I don't think we really need more than this. This is a late game bomb, a late game finisher. And voila, we just crafted a new card and added it to our deck. And we now want to try it in action. So I'm gonna jump into a game with this deck in a second. If you want to try this yourself, if you either want to create cards or play this game, you can join the closed beta for free as well. And I'll leave a link to their website if you want some more information about the game itself and the development roadmap and so on. And at the end of the video, I also give a bit of a resume of what I like and what I don't like about this game. But first of all, let's hop into some gameplay action. And here we are. The game starts with a mulligan. I want my early units and my early hand buff cards with this deck. Let's see what we can find. We already have one of our self-created hand buffing cards that is great for early tempo, and this opening hand looks absolutely nuts. I just explained the core idea of my deck real quick. This is all about boards, stats and numbers. That's why I play a bunch of cheap units and try to hand buff them as early as possible, with drawbacks such as sacrificing life points or discarding cards early on to gain tempo. To have big stats early on the board. And due to our god that we play, we have access to a lot of card draw. Whenever one of our Furvat allies kills an enemy in a duel, draw one. So we want big numbers early on, we want to control the board, and that will keep the draw engine rolling. So far there's nothing for us to do here. We want to save our hand buff until a little bit later to hit as many cards as possible. I think on the next turn we can pop off. So what you see in the middle is the effect chain. This is pretty close to what it looks like in Legends of Runeterra. Some round start effects get activated here. I will put the hand buff on the spell stack and hope my opponent does not deny it. My opponent seems to have a similar idea here, +2/+2 to everything, but I think we should be good here because we have a mana advantage, because we were willing to sacrifice life points and our opponent was not. So with the 30 unit mana we have left, we want to play one Slyfox here for 16, that also draws a card, fills up our hand again. And we draw even more hand buffs. That is great, but I will play for early tempo. I will just vomit these cards onto the board. Discard one, we don't have anything we are super happy with. We'll just discard the other discarder. I think one lifesteal unit should be enough. And this is what combat looks like. We just drag our unit into the middle. Since our opponent has no blockers, we'll just go directly to their god, to their face. And boom. Unless they interact with us with spells, of course, but I don't think they should have anything here. So we regained the life points we sacrificed early on already. As you can see, there's quite some synergy in all of the cards that I did build for this deck. And that's what's so lovely about the creativity of this game. This takes deck building to a whole new level. Here we see another early tempo card that I really like. Keep in mind we draw a lot of cards, so I'm kind of okay with discarding a lot of cards early, but have a huge pile of stats on the board early on, and this one also has regeneration. So it's going to be very sticky and sturdy, probably going to clear out a bunch of units, and that allows us to redraw the cards that we discarded earlier on. Okay, I think I'm just going to go for more hand buffs here. Put that on the stack, otherwise I will not do much this turn, but next turn we can pop off with more units again. Our opponent plays a buff here. This will allow them to trade favorably, but we should be fine. Our alpha lobster does get removed from the battlefield here, but we'll get our revenge next turn. Here we go, now let's play some big stats ourselves, and we have a combat trick in our back pocket if needed. Trail, this is perfectly fine, we'll let this resolve. We'll play one more fox here, which is good solid early tempo. Okay, and now let's try to get some favorable trades in here. Our units should be protected here from the rapid attack keyword. They strike first in combat, and as we can see, each unit we take out will give us a draw. Once all the blockers are gone, we can attack the god again. Already chipping them down to 6 HP. Them dropping so low on HP, triggers the special summoning condition of Mia. God's life points are 10 or lower. Mia is a very defensive huntress that will heal the champion back up and is pretty hard to remove because of the unassailable keyword. But I think we have such a good tempo lead here that we should just be able to run our opponent over. Okay, so we want to play some more blockers this turn. We first want to start off with the hand buff, I think. And we want to keep mana open for our combat trick to surprise our opponent later on. This would be a devastating trade for us, so let's try here with Artemis Pass. Our opponent is also almost tapped out of mana here. I don't think they can react to this, and we take out a unit for free. Keep the draw cycle going. Attacking with Mia, that is quite questionable. This is where AI might be a bit, well, slacking in their quality of plays. And we'll just use this opportunity to push for some more tempo. I'm fine discarding the other Lobster Spice cards. I think I only need one of them to run my opponent over. And next turn we'll just summon a few more units and hope to finish our opponent on this next attack. So I play the Bicorn, sacrificing one of my smaller units. What does this do? Okay, that is perfectly fine. I just play more units before all of my units get granted rapid attack, before this effect resolves. And here we go, we have a very heavy offensive board. Let's see if they can withstand this attack. Only 25 mana left. We draw another combat trick. That's pretty big in case we need a little bit more reach, but let's hit the god directly and see if our opponent can react to this. Looks like they don't have anything. We'll go step by step here, chip down the HP. And let's see if the fox will give the final blow. And that's all she wrote. Of course, the user interface and so on is still a bit rough around the edges. Keep in mind this game is just now opening the closed beta doors, letting people in. A lot of the sound effects and so on, a lot of the graphics and animations are gonna get improved. The dev team does seem very ambitious and very passionate about the project. As we can see here, we get some rewards for this game. We did not complete any quests, but we will do that at some later point. And yeah, that's all you need to know about Ariokan. If you want to try this, you can also find more info on their website, which will also be linked. And if you're still unsure whether or not Ariokan is the game for you, let me just outline some pros and cons, and I will give you a very honest opinion here. Yes, this is sponsored content, but the dev team does want me to give very honest feedback, so I'll also be critical in some points. So the biggest plus point of Ariokan is, of course, the card builder. That's very unique. I have personally not seen that yet in any other card game. If you've always been curious about designing some cards or creating art for some cards, then this is definitely for you. And I think this game can also appeal to CCG veterans who like more complexity in their games. I personally like the 100 mana system instead of the more common 10 mana system, because that allows much more precise costs for cards, and it makes strategizing and game planning much more in-depth. The other big plus point is how free-to-play friendly it is. It is pretty easy to unlock cards, it is pretty easy to create your own cards, and it's also very nicely accessible. There's already a friend challenge mode if you want to invite your friends and play against your friends, and the Ariokan developers also regularly host tournaments as well as ask the players for feedback, so it very much feels like a community-run game. Now for the downsides, going back to the mana system, for more casual players this can be very confusing, right? Because it's much more quick maths that you need to do, and especially on later turns it can be very hard to map out your whole game plan. Another thing that casual players might not like as much is, due to the nature of the back and forth action system, some games can get pretty drawn out and long. And if you're also coming from Marvel Snap like me, this can feel like a pretty stark contrast to what we are now used to. And the last thing that I already mentioned is that the game is still a bit buggy and it does need to get polished, a lot of the interface things and so on. But like I said, the devs are aware of it, they are working on it, and they are always looking for community feedback, which is really, really cool. And that's it for this video. I personally think that Ariokan has a lot of potential and it has a pretty unique premise, so I'm excited about what the future brings. And don't forget, if you want to join the closed beta yourself, you can do so through the links in the video description as well as the comments. And don't forget that you can invite your friends as well. Have fun.